Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today, and I've got a little bit different take. I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of a schizophrenic topic. I'm going to talk about some of the positive things I see and going on in agriculture, and then also I wanted to give you an update about a pretty serious issue that affected the agricultural industry in the Arkansas Valley this past year, and that is the cantaloupe issue. So I'd like to at least talk about two different things and give you a brief update on those. The first thing I'd like to talk about is some real positive things that I see as far as a healthy agriculture. Some of the things that we have going on in this valley are really amazing to me. After working and living in this almost all my life, I'm constantly amazed about the potential this valley has. And one of those real positive things is just the natural resource base we have. I think if anybody has any idea about the type of resources they shouldn't have any doubt about what amazing resources, not just water, but soils and climate. We've got some great soils in this valley that can produce just about anything. And then most importantly, we've got great environment. We've got one of the biggest shifts in day-night temperature, or changes in diurnal variation in temperatures of anywhere in the country, and this leads to amazing types of products. That's why Manny can produce the sweetest and best apples of anywhere in the country, right, Manny? That's right. And that's why the Pueblo chili has such a unique flavor, and that's why Rocky Ford watermelons taste so good. So those can't be replicated anywhere. And so, as we look at promoting a healthy agriculture, not only do we have flavorful products, but we've got very nutritional products that we can reproduce. And because of those unique characteristics, it's amazing to me that we're not protecting those natural resources like it's our only child. It should be there, and we should understand that, and we should use whatever resource we have to preserve and protect those. And it amazes me sometimes, and I'm glad we're hearing more dialogue about protecting and having agriculture at the table. But I'm not sure we always understood that over the years. But we've got such a unique and valuable resource that we should be using all of our energies to preserve and protect that. Another positive thing I see is moving toward healthy agriculture is this public awareness of agriculture. And again, just because we have this discussion today, I mean, you're constantly hearing about how everybody in Colorado wants to preserve and protect agriculture. And the past history, we can look back and say, oh my goodness, look at what we've lost. The thousands of acres that we've dried up, and the thousands of acres that are no longer productive, and the small rural communities that have dried up because of those changes of you moving water from agriculture to municipalities. We know that that's no longer really acceptable anymore, so it's forcing us to look for new alternatives. Another way that is reflective of how our public is becoming more in tune with agriculture is our increase. A good example of that is the number of farmers markets and the increased awareness of the local foods movement. All these things are very indicative that we as a community, as a state, value agriculture. So that's a very positive thing and a very healthy trend that we're seeing in agriculture. We're also seeing agriculture being more aware of the public, and so we're starting to see growers pull together and looking at other ways that they can improve their agricultural efficiency, their water use efficiency, pooling their resources so they're not this adversarial type of relationship that we've had in the past. Things like the super ditch, whether you're for or against, is just an example of how growers are pulling together to try to work with the public. And because we now have a public that is more acceptable of agriculture, more understanding of agriculture, and agriculture that is more understanding of the public, we now have this great potential, and that we probably never had in our history, of working together to look at cooperative agreements. And I can envision a time where cities own farm ground, or they own different things, not just to have it as a place marker for their water resources, because it'll provide them with fuel for their city, provide them for good nutritional food so their children aren't so obese, or have medicinal uses. All those things are potentially in play. Have it as a recreational resources. So I'm hopeful and optimistic on that front. Another thing that we've got going for us here in this valley is we have absolutely outstanding growers. And I think we take that for granted. We've got this kind of historical view of what our growers are, but I'm convinced that we've got some of the best growers of anywhere in the country here. They're willing to learn and adapt and learn new technologies. And I'm constantly amazed at what they're willing to do to improve all the aspects of their production. And then that also segues into the next thing, is that the new technologies that are coming out. You know, agriculture is changing rapidly. There's new technology, the biotechnology, I alluded to that. Having food or growing crops for fuel, growing crops for medicinal purposes, looking at more health attributes of our crops. All those things are coming into play. And using our natural resources more wisely. The other day I was sitting with some young farmer, and I was just kind of taken aback at this. He was there playing on his phone like most kids I see, anybody under 20 has always got their little phone in front of them doing something to it. I'm not sure what they're doing to it. But anyway, he was saying, I said, what are you doing? And he says, well, I'm irrigating. And I said, you're irrigating? Yeah. He says, yeah, I'm irrigating. I'm managing my sprinkler systems here. I'm checking all the weather data. And so all these things we've been talking about are coming to fruition right now. All these technologies are coming, and it's really amazing what we can see now, and things that we can't even envision in the next 5 to 10 years of the technology that's going to be out here to help us to be a little more efficient. So how do we protect and maintain a healthy agriculture? And I think it goes well beyond that we need to have water for agriculture. Yeah, that's true. We need to have water for agriculture. We need to make sure we protect the quality and the quantity of it. But we also need to preserve the opportunity. And when I talk about, talk to farmers who want to sell their water, or talk to municipalities that want to buy water, I say, you know what we're really talking about is opportunity here. How do we protect an opportunity for a young person that wants to be in agriculture to go out there and take advantage of that, to learn the new technologies, to produce food? And if we don't have that opportunity, not just from the water, but making it affordable for them to water, having the land available, making sure that they're going to have all those things available to them, you're not going to be able to produce food in the future because there is no opportunity. So it boils down to that. And I do think we've got a good opportunity in the future because, we talked about there are young people out there. There are people that aren't traditionally in agriculture wanting to be part of agriculture. So I'm very optimistic that we've got some young people coming on board that are going to do some amazing things to provide us food, fiber, and fuel in the future. And again, we just need to make sure we have that opportunity for them. And I'm glad to hear the dialogue going on of that we want to preserve and protect agriculture, but I'm not sure we truly understand what that means. And are we really, as municipalities and as other entities, really willing to make those choices? Are we willing to say no to a particular industry so we can protect agriculture? I think if a big employer came to many of the cities in the basin and they said, hey, we want to provide 200 jobs and we're going to need this many acre feet of water, how many municipalities would really say, wait a minute, let's see how that's going to impact agriculture 50 or 60 miles downstream? I think that's a little bit big pill to swallow right now. So I'm glad the dialogue's out there, but I still think we've got a ways to go to make sure we preserve that opportunity. So I'm going to segue next into my next topic, and that is dealing with the cantaloupe issue. And this is something that we've been dealing with now for the past few months, and many of you have heard exactly some of the food safety issues associated with the cantaloupe issue. The Rocky Ford cantaloupe issue, and for those of you, obviously many of you know the whole history of the Rocky Ford cantaloupe. That industry has been an iconic industry in the valley for many, many years. It started around the late 1890s in and around the Rocky Ford area by George Washington Swink, and was one of the pioneers in the area. He first brought various types of crops into the area, but found that this particular area can grow outstanding cantaloupe, and at one point was one of the major, or the major shipping points of melons of anywhere in the country. And it's amazing, given the technology that they had at that time, that they were able to put cantaloupes on a rail car in Rocky Ford, Colorado, or Swink, and ship them all the way to New York City and get them there, and it grew from there. Through the early 1900s and 1920s, that industry continued to expand, and also the seed industry also began to flourish. So we had thousands, over 10,000 acres of melons grown in the valley in those early part of the 1900s, just because supplying the fresh market and also the seed industry as well. Through the 1930s and 40s, that industry kind of maintained itself, and the reputation was there, and people still knew of Rocky Ford cantaloupes and so forth. In about the 1990s, we started to see a transition in the industry, is that we started seeing a lot of these growers adopt new technologies to help produce a better quality crop and reduce water use. And that technology, of course, was plasticulture. Plasticulture meaning incorporating different forms of plastic into their production scheme, and that things like drip irrigation and plastic mulch. So we saw with, for example, with drip irrigation that we were actually able to grow, reduce the consumptive use or the total water use on a crop from anywhere from 18 or 20 acre inches down to about 12 acre inches when we went to this technology. So significantly reduced the amount of evaporation. It also provided a barrier from the evaporation from the soil surface, provided a nice clean surface that the melons can grow on, and it also enhanced the earliness of the crop. So we were able to extend our growing period anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks, where we were able to increase productivity maybe 30, 40, or 50%, and then improve the quality as well. Because we have this now ability through drip irrigation to really direct and improve the water amount getting to the crop, we can increase some of those soluble solids. That's just a term for sugars, basically. So we increase the quality of the crop as well. So things are going pretty well. Again, we were facing a lot of competition. The industry was from other parts of the world, and California in particular. And then, but for the most part, the industry was doing quite well since this advent of drip irrigation. Even through some of the more severe droughts, that was able to buffer them somewhat against some of the severe droughts because they had these technologies in place. Last year, the industry took a major shock, as we all know. In September of 2011, I got a call from the Colorado Department of Health informing me that there was an issue with cantaloupes, and they think those cantaloupes came from Colorado. They weren't really too sure, but since the vast majority of cantaloupes produced in the state are in the Rocky Ford area or in the Arkansas Valley, that was the obvious place to go. They didn't know where it was. They thought it was going to be marketed as Rocky Ford cantaloupe. Over the next few days, it became very apparent that through the technologies that they have, that there was a widespread increase in Listeria. Listeria monocytogenes was the organism that was implicated in it, and they, through various ways and methods that they had of identifying, they interviewed the people that were getting sick, and they found that there was definitely a correlation between that and the foods aid, and they concentrated on the cantaloupe. So it was very shocking and very tragic. Obviously, that was the worst thing, is that there was a severe tragedy, and that's the worst thing, is that the people and families were severely affected by it, and nobody would want to wish that on anybody, and it's a very unfortunate occurrence. So eventually they did find that it was associated with cantaloupe that was being marketed as a Rocky Ford brand, and they issued a warning, and from there it was amazing what the fallout was. At that point, you can just see it on the internet, just the amount of information and how rapidly it spread. Rocky Ford cantaloupe. You Google Rocky Ford cantaloupe right now, and it's amazing what kind of stories you come up with. And that just spread like wildfire. I wish I could have a slide like you had about how fast I could have a cantaloupe going up in smoke as well. But it was quite tragic, stunning. The amount of news coverage, media coverage descending upon Rocky Ford for interviews was unprecedented. And so here we have growers that are unaccustomed to this kind of attention, being thrust in front of a camera, addressing why is this happening? What are you guys doing about it? All these types of things. So it was quite a task to take on. So what happened next is obviously the first thing, there was a lot of denial out there, what's happening and and eventually they got to the point where they did identify what was happening. After that, though, there was so much media coverage, so much attention out there that it was really hard to sort through it to really pinpoint. And it was isolated to a single piece of equipment. It had nothing to do with the land, the water, the farms. It was a single piece of equipment that had become contaminated in a packing facility in Hawley, Colorado, and then, of course, contaminated a significant amount of melons. After that point in that processing, that melons were then distributed a lot of places, and of course the tragedy ensued. So what's happening next? Well, over the last 4 or 5 months, then the industry has really just been stunned. I mean, I think that was the first thing that happened, is that they were stunned. But it was amazing to me, the resolve and the character that these growers showed. And I think that's just an indication of what kind of growers we have. They realize this is just not an economic situation they're dealing in, the economic impact, you know, but it was something much deeper than that. This was their culture. This was their families. This is the same melons that they were feeding to their families. This is what their grandfathers came out on and worked for and slaved for and fought through droughts and hailstorms and other things to deal with. So it was much more than that. So for the first time in the history of the industry, the growers really pulled together, and they took about some very legitimate steps to help recoup their name, help recoup the industry. And really with a lot of help from the Colorado Department of Agriculture, they're making a lot of progress. Some of that progress starts with coming together as a group and saying, what are we going to do to reinstill? We know what happened. We know that necessarily our crop wasn't at fault, but we know that we have a long ways to go to instill confidence in the consumer. So what they've done is they've formed, first and foremost, was an organization. And this is something that they've attempted over the years to try to come together to form an organization, to pool resources, to promote and all these things. They've never been able to do it. It was amazing now with this tragedy that they did come together. So we've got almost a universal acceptance of people that want to grow Rocky Ford cantaloupe are coming together in an organization that will assess themselves monies to do promotion, to do training and all these things. They've also are undertaking a lot of food safety training, and over the last 3 months we've had probably 5 or 6 different opportunities for them to learn the state-of-the-art information that's out there as far as what are the best and safe handling practices. They brought in some of the best experts of anywhere in the country out there to explain to them what's going on, to make sure that they're absolutely doing everything correctly. They're also going to be working with the Colorado Department of Agriculture to do a verification process, and that is a self-auditing. So not only are they learning it, but they're standing behind that through a self-auditing process. And then finally, they're going to do a promotional efforts. So right now, we're looking at probably about, you know, we don't know what's going to happen. And we know that we still produce a good crop. They've produced a good crop for 120 years, and they still are producing a good crop. The question is how the public is going to perceive that and how it's going to rebound. I would anticipate at this time there's probably going to be about 25 to 30% of the acres that there were last year, just because a couple of the major producers have not been in business. But the ones that are in there, they're steadfast that they are going to produce a safe crop. They're going to produce a crop that everybody can have confidence in. So I guess I'm asking this group as a group of people that have concerns about the basin, or understand what's going on, understand that this was an isolated event, understand that this is something that these growers have done absolutely everything they have, investing their time, money and resources, but it's much deeper than that. This is part of who they are and part of our character of agriculture in the valley. So they've done everything they possibly can to produce a safe crop. And so you'll have that opportunity this coming year really to put your money where your mouth is, or mouth where your money is, I guess, wherever you want to look at it, to try and support these guys as they undertake this, because I think there's a real good opportunity. And I really believe that because of these things, we're going to come out for the better. We're going to be able to promote not only Rocky Ford cantaloupe, but all the unique and wonderful products that we produce in this valley. So I look forward to this coming year. It's going to be a little bit anxious moments. I'm sure we're going to have a lot more publicity about the situation, but I think sometimes as you go through these tumultuous times, you'll come out a little bit better, and that's what I'm hoping for this valley, is that we'll come out where we're producing a safer crop. We'll be able to really promote those attributes, that sweetness in the apples, the great flavor of the Pueblo chili, and all those other products that we produce, and come out better. And the state and the region will really embrace that we produce a great product. So thank you very much.